Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caroline Colas, and I am the Senior Director of Health and Wellness at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. Thank you for joining us on our Lunch and Learn call, the Power of Positivity Hour. Today, we're going to be talking with Dr. Sherry Schuyler Kelly on staying emotionally vibrant in the virtual world. It's no wonder why we're more disconnected from each other, but we are more connected to our devices because the average adult spends more than 24 plus hours each week scrolling, gaming, streaming, or searching the web. Today, we're going to be talking with Dr. Kelly about the research of neuropsychology and the combination of how that links with positive psychology to shine a light on the impact of digital technology on our well-being. Learn how social media and entertainment platforms are training our responses, as well as how digital technology is influencing our children and how they're developing and how we are aging as well. A little bit about Dr. Kelly. She's a clinical psychologist and a neuropsychologist with more than 30 years of experience in the field of child development and health psychology. She earned her doctorate in health psychology from Yeshiva University and is a former National Institutes of Health and National Cancer Institute fellow in psycho-oncology and neuropsychology. Based in West Hartford, Connecticut, Dr. Kelly is best known for her research with teens and young adults on resilience, hope, and cancer survivorship. She is the founder of Positive Teens, which offers workshops for students, parents, and educators on the impact of digital technology on the developing brain. And we are going to learn today from Dr. Kelly how digital technology is affecting our brain. Thank you so much for joining us. This is your fourth time.
It's so great to be here. Thank you. It's an honor to be back with JCC and Lunch and Learn and to see everyone. Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
You are so welcome. So let's just catch up a little bit. I know you have a lot of content for us, but this seems like a particularly relevant conversation to be having right now. Why did you want to talk about this particular topic today?
Well, thank you. I really am very concerned about the amount of time that we are spending online. And as you said, we're spending more than a day per week online. So it's a huge impact on our lives. It's impacting our relationships. So many people are experiencing Zoom fatigue. When you think about how many hours a day we're connected to our devices, it's really having an impact on our emotional functioning and our cognitive functioning. There are many physiological variables involved also with the exposure to blue light, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, as well as the amount of time that we are actually isolated with our devices. So even though we may feel connected, we're actually more disconnected than ever before. So many people are experiencing isolation, loneliness, ironically, even though they seem to be connected via social media. And our behavior patterns are changing. And as I had mentioned to you and Phoebe before the start of the recording, what COVID has done is really catapulted the future forward at a faster rate towards us. So it's not only changed our world, but it's brought the future forward to us. So we're doing a lot more of brain-computer interfacing than we did a year ago. And this has a cost. It costs us in our lives. So for us to stay vibrant and healthy through our lifetime, we have to be proactive. We have to take charge and not be so passive in our interfacing with our technology.
Awesome. Well, this is going to be a very interesting conversation. I can tell already.
It will be.
Share your screen and let's get into
it. I will.
Have time for questions at the end.
Before I share the screen, I want to give a little lunch tidbit from our WBI friend, who's a Joan Baron-Cinco, Dr. Joan Baron-Cinco. This is from Pocket Full of Miracles, which is a wonderful book to have. And this is for today from her book. I want you to try this today. Practice a few minutes of meditation. The light, or the little apple of a centering prayer, Retrospect and reflect the way that you expressed your feelings yesterday. If you tend to use your feelings as a way to justify feeling bad, consider the possibility that you could use your feelings as guides to feeling better today. And that's the tidbit from Joan. So thank you. I'm going to try to share the content and we'll see if I can do this. Yay, here it is. Hi, everyone. Can you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. All right. So this is my very favorite webinar that I share with people, and I'm so thrilled to be here today. So why do we have to be concerned, and why am I sharing this with you today? Well, here's our objectives and goals. I want to review the concerns you might have and that many Americans have about the challenges of interacting and being dependent upon social media and the internet. The role of social media and technology in brain health and overall and wellness is expansive. And what is it that can help us understand and mediate the impact of technology on our aging brains? What can we do about it? Answer questions like, why is it we check our emails so often? Why do we check our devices so often? What is it about it that's making it addictive? And then can we actually code our brains for more happiness in a negative world? What is it about doom scrolling? You may have heard about doom scrolling. And why are we attracted to scrolling for the negativity? And how can we foster a growth mindset in the digital age? And at different points in our conversation today, I'm going to be stopping and inviting you to ask me questions. So I'm going to jump into this first one. So why should we be concerned? We have more opportunities than ever before. We seem more connected than ever before, yet we are also disconnected and isolated. Why is that? Well, this summer, Yale did a study with their Center for Emotional Intelligence. They surveyed over 5,000 people this summer during the COVID pandemic and asked people to describe their own feelings in their own words. Well, 95% of the words reflected anxiety, sadness, worry, and fear. Only 6% of those words were positive. So we're in distress. For us baby boomers, it's a huge storm of really a confluence of getting older, having technology coming at us faster, feeling more disconnected from our loved ones because of COVID. In 10 years from now, by 2030, most baby boomers will be over the age of 70. There's going to be an increasing number of baby boomers with mental health disorders, due in part to, yes, increased diagnosis and treatment, yet only 56% of us receive no treatment. So more than half of us receive no treatment, even though more than half of us are going to be experiencing some type of mental distress. We're confronting aging. We're not ready for it. We're not ready for it financially. We're not ready for it emotionally. Many of us are distant from our support systems, especially now that we're isolated with COVID or not going into work, not going to faith-based services, not even going to the gym. So we're more isolated, and this is keeping us away from key support systems. So last year, before COVID, Great Call did a study of baby boomers and people over the age of 60. 43% of seniors before COVID reported feeling lonely on a regular basis. 45% will have an increased risk of mortality. And that's true. In 10 years, many of the baby boomers will be 80. Most of them will be, 75 to 80. That's right. 45% of seniors report feeling lonely, and this was before COVID. Loneliness is dangerous, and all the hardiness studies and well-being studies over the past 2 decades have shown that loneliness is a huge health risk factor. So keep this in mind. Today's Roman Colosseum, where all the entertainment, the judgments, the acting out of cultural drama happened. Today's Roman Colosseum looks like what? A cell phone. It's in the palm of your hand. So we're really taking the drama of the world and it's at our fingertips. We are spending more time on devices and less time on other things. So the average US adult will spend almost more than one full day a week. That's more than 28 hours a day now on our devices. That's more than 4 hours per day on your smartphone, on apps, on browsers. We are using the devices for entertainment instead of our TVs. If you work on your device also, you're spending probably more than 8 hours a day on the screen. So this is interesting. This is from last year, for February 2019. So percentage of US baby boomers who use selected social networks. So we can see that, you know, the majority of baby boomers are using YouTube and Facebook. Those are sort of our most popular applications and platforms. YouTube, of course, you're using a lot for entertainment and information. Facebook for talking and keeping up, and also for getting information. So be honest with yourself. Are you more concerned with what you eat for lunch than what you watch on your device or what you're watching on social media? Your diet is not only what you eat, it's what you put inside by looking at it, by scrolling. It's what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, the people you hang out with, and the things you subject your mind and soul to. So if you are to remain vibrant emotionally and healthy with your brain and your mind, always be mindful of the things you put into your body, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So is media all that bad? Am I saying it's tech's all that bad? No. We have the world at our fingertips, exposure to new ideas and knowledge, social connections, efficiency of tasks, speed of communicating and learning, and access to the world. But there's a price. It costs. So here are the risks and guidelines. This is what has been studied so far. Impact on sleep, weight gain, problem solving, communications, your relationships, sense of reality, future planning, your levels of attention, all can be impacted by the amount of time as well as the type of activity you're engaged in online. Not to mention the exposure to inappropriate, inaccurate, or unsafe content that can affect you emotionally, as well as compromised confidentiality and privacy. So folks, you are not only the consumer, you are also the product. That's right, you are a product. You are sold. Your information is sold. You're monitored. Your screen habits are monitored, your scrolling habits, your viewing habits, and all that information is worth a lot of money to marketers and corporations. And then last but not least, the risks of isolation and depression, anxiety, and narcissism from being online so much of your life. It's all reality. So the problem stems from the fact that we did not evolve to be technologically connected to a device. We evolved to be this little cave person, or we evolved from this little cave person. It took us thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of years to even write. So if you think about how we write now, and if you think about how we evolved as a 24-hour day, we didn't really start writing until about 11:15 p.m. So now our communication has changed radically in just 2 decades, whereas it took us tens of thousands of years to evolve just to write. So we have evolutionary considerations. We are a brain, we are encasing a brain that loves intimacy, wants relationships. It's how we evolved to survive. So our inner self, our very pure self of wanting to be connected to each other, and our survival mechanisms that have developed over millennia is now being challenged by a technology that's not really in sync bioevolutionary with our brains. So this is our amazing brain, and this is our limbic system. And so much of our emotional functioning stems from this core area of the brain, which I like to refer to as the little Tootsie Roll inside of the Tootsie Pop. And as you can see, a lot of our emotions, a lot of our memory and our planning, our relatedness with everything, how we think is something that developed in our brains over millennia. And now the brain's being used in a different way as we scroll and swipe and troll through information on a device. So one of the things that scientists study that really impacts our vibrancy is our exposure to blue light. And so especially as you spend more and more time online late at night, it's going to impact your sleep-wake cycle. And very simply, as your sleep-wake cycle is impacted, that is sort of a rolling stone over how you are working cognitively throughout the day. It affects your hormones, it affects your memory, it affects your alertness. Blue light is really messing up the sleep-wake cycle. And, our eyes aren't used to that. I actually use blue light glasses to help. And there are some studies that it helps. You can get those now online. But you can see that you can do more research on this yourself if you look at blue light and risk for depression, blue light and risk for memory and sleep disturbance. So remember that your brain was not developed over millennia to become a video arcade. How do multiple sources of highly charged and fast-paced stimuli impact your brain? Well, it does. So especially if you're gaming and you're playing lots of fast-paced games, and I know a lot of young people like the fast-paced games, it impacts the timing mechanisms of your brain. It impacts impulse control, decision-making, inhibition, impulsive behaviors, and so does social network sites. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. So your brain is actually being impacted through the timing mechanism and the light. The stimuli that is hitting your brain is hitting at such a fast pace. This is not the normal stimuli we see in everyday life. So your brain's sort of accommodating for this. How is it doing that? Well, inside your brain, and I'm going to explain this, and I'm going to stop because this is like an incredible news for you. Inside your brain, there is a timing mechanism. It lies in key areas of your brain, in the thalamus, the switching station, the basal ganglia. And it's like an internal metronome, like you see a metronome on top of your piano. There's timing mechanisms inside your brain. Your brain has a processor, sort of like your computer has a processor. And this timing mechanism can be disrupted by certain types of technology. The brain accommodates for high impact and constant stimulation. The long-term impact of media and technology on the brain is this: your brain downshifts to accommodate for stimuli. Your processing speed gets slower in response. It actually downshifts and gets lazy. And it's like saying, okay, entertain me. I don't have to work so hard. You're going to entertain me. And it accommodates and downshifts for this fast-paced stimulation. So remember that you are really accommodating for all this multiple stimulation. And as a result, the brain becomes more reactive and less proactive. So that, people don't remember any longer that making a choice swiping left or right or reacting to a game is not the same as thinking or reasoning. So I'm going to stop right there for questions because that's a heavy load. Any questions? Caroline, are you with me?
I am.
Did I shock you all?
Well, we had some comments in the chat that, wow, this is kind of anxiety provoking, right?
Yeah.
Right? And I think it is, right? To think about this, and also the impact that it's having on us is a lot.
If you watch The Social Dilemma, which is on Netflix right now with Jonathan Haidt, he talks a little bit about this. I've been giving lectures on this for 3 years across the country, and people are really shocked. But this is what's happening. And I'm telling you this as someone trained in neuropsychology. And I've worked with people who have been on the other side, who have worked for Facebook, who've worked for Google. AI is real. The information that you are interacting with right now and scanning right now on your phone, and your actual behaviors online are being swept up by the folks that are coding and developing artificial intelligence. In another 25 years, I'm guesstimating that about half of your time at work and at home will be interfacing with AI. Yeah. You already see it in cars.
Everybody's, just so you know, that's artificial intelligence. And just in case anybody was wondering.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about this, Mark Cuban has a wonderful YouTube video explaining artificial intelligence in very simple terms. You might know Mark Cuban from Shark Tank. He owns the Dallas basketball team, and his daughter's a friend of my daughter's. They went to camp together.
Isn't that great?
In the woods where there were no electronics allowed for a month. Just telling you.
You know what I'm curious about is that during COVID, have we actually seen everything? Like some of those stats were from 2019.
The one I just gave you on the 28 hours a week is from now.
Okay. Okay, that was my question. And then what is the max hours teens can healthfully play games online?
Oh, wait. Are we talking about playing games, or are we talking about
the question was
scrolling, or because there's a difference?
It looks like it's games.
If your child is spending more than 2.5 hours gaming, I would be concerned.
A day or a week?
A day. Now, seriously, if your kid is definitely more than 3 hours a day, and I want to say this, there are some gaming platforms that are social. So there are teenagers, predominantly boys, that go to game platforms that are like social media platforms. And I'm concerned about those also because that is a social arena where there's risk of being catfished or groomed. So be aware of these social.
Explain what those terms mean.
All right. So being tricked into getting into a relationship with somebody online, or being tricked into developing a relationship and the person is an adult predator. Gotcha. So there are gaming sites that are dangerous. There are gaming sites that are fine, but that's a whole other webinar that we can do on cyber safety, and I'd love to do that.
Yes, and several others have said, I'm being socially and intellectually stimulated and connected with tech. Without it, I would be isolated and lacking emotional and intellectual satisfaction, and is only a band-aid to help when I'm alone. Anyone else? Yeah, I think, Ellen, that's really true. Can we also talk about, it reminds me of is positive psychology, which is that in one hand, we have the reality of what we're looking at. And now we have the and, right? Because we also have what we can do about it, what the benefits are, and our capacity, what we're doing here today is to talk about how can we see the reality for what it is, but also have the capacity to hold both. And then, as someone was saying is it's a choice like most adults make every minute of your life. That can be true too, but we also have to know that these devices are addictive as well, right? And how do we know when we're, you know, in an addictive relationship with a device, I think is an interesting question to ask as well.
Great question. So number one, I'm going to get to that, what to do about it right after that I answer this question. And one of the things I think, and I'm so excited about sharing with you, is that you can do something about it. And there's a way to think about staying cognitively healthy and a way of honing your reasoning skills, your critical reasoning skills, and your resiliency through positive psychology. How do you know if there's a problem? Well, one of the great things about these devices is that you can track your usage. And I highly suggest you do that. See how many hours you're spending each week. And it's built into your smartphone. And really see how many hours you're spending on different applications and platforms. You can do this on the computer also. And that's really sobering to see that. The other thing is you definitely need to set aside structured time every day to get off the device. Whether it's, you know, using a phone basket at the dinner table for your family or for yourself, whether it's, you know, meditating or doing mindfulness practice without a device, if you can do that, or taking a walk where you shut off the smartphone so that you actually are not listening, but actually being outdoors. There's an abundance of research from the field of eco-psychology on the importance of being in nature to counteract the impact of digital technology. So I'm going to shift now to the positive psychology piece, if I can still do this. There it is. Yay. And I'm just going to shift down. It started again, so I'm sorry. I'm just going to go through. Well, there we go. I'm an analog gal in a digital world. That's what I am. So thank you for sticking with me. So here we go. So one of the things author Nicholas Carr writes about is how reading is different now for him when he's reading online and when he's reading on, you know, his downloaded books. Once I was a scuba diver in a sea of words. Now I zip along the surface like a guy in a jet ski. And that's really what I feel like too. And a lot of kids feel that way about studying because so much of their studying is very fast paced and online right now. And they're only going for the surface of things. They're not going deep. And we also see this with relationships. This is what I'm seeing in my practice with people. So just to clarify, technology is neither good or bad, nor it's neutral. And this is from Melvin Kranzberg. I love this. This is a great explanation. The thing that makes technology not neutral is its architecture. It enables certain kinds of relating while disabling others. So think about that. And a lot, you know, really the first step to sort of changing your thought process about what technology is doing to your life and turning the corner and making changes for more vibrancy is to think about this. It is enabling certain kinds of relating while disabling other kinds of relating.
And it's also tracking, right?
Tracking, you're the product, people.
Right. You were talking
I don't want to make, I'm sorry, I don't want to make money for Mark Zuckerberg every day.
Well, and you were also talking about how Alexa will now, if you've asked it what the weather is, it will suddenly start telling you without you even asking.
Yeah, so this is the brain cloud or the brain computer and the brain computer interface, which is already happening. And I'm gonna, there's a slide on that coming up. But if you're interested in that, I would Google that, BCI, brain cloud interface or brain computer interface. Absolutely. Your behaviors are being tracked and it's to sell you stuff ultimately. So why are we addicted to email? So people always ask me this, and this is why. So we get a little reward in our brain. This reward produces dopamine. It's a hit of dopamine. It releases a feeling of pleasure or excitement. And we continue to check our email because even the thought of getting gratification releases dopamine. So just the anticipation of knowing there's emails waiting for us gives us a hit of dopamine. Triggers relating email are everywhere, and we give into them very easily. So checking email becomes a habit because we do it dozens of times a day, or for some of us, dozens of times a minute. This is a cocktail napkin I found in Great Barrington. Don't you love it? I hope someone else finds it amusing, but it's the truth. How many times have you guys been to a party and people are staring at their phones? Or when you see kids on the street, they're staring at their phones, they're not even talking to their friends. So social media, you and digital natives. So guys, as adults, we are digital immigrants. Our children are digital natives. They don't know life before the smartphones or the internet. Social media platforms, many of the most popular ones, were not originally designed for children, like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Tinder. They were not originally designed for children. They were designed as consumer platforms. It's not there to make you smarter. It's attached to marketing platforms to gather information every time you use it. Yes, social media can be addictive. It can foster negative behavior patterns. The biggest one that I am concerned about is enforcing quick reactions instead of being proactive, not thinking, just reacting. The more is better phenomenon with social media is not that great. I know kids judge each other on how many followers they have or how many likes they get on Instagram. Who really wants 1,500 friends? Who are these people? You can actually buy friends and you can buy likes. You can buy followers on Instagram. It's a product. You can actually go on Instagram and buy followers. Is your worth and your identity based on likes, followers, or being ghosted? Well, for many teenagers and millennials, yes. It's terrible. When I talk to high school counselors and college psychologists, they tell me that almost 70 to 75% of the cases they see walk into their office for help is based on someone being bullied, excluded, hurt, something they saw on social media. Attachment to your family and in-person friends are more important than your online life. You need that real life connection. You need real people, not just virtual relationships. So social media, I love this quote by Mark Norman. Yes, social media is like looking in the fridge over and over again. You know there's nothing good, but you check it so many times that eventually you start consuming things you don't even like. So this is my favorite slide. You think of nothing else today, remember this. So remember I talked to you about how many platforms were developed for consumerism and for selling things. So a lot of our favorite educational and emotional platforms, educational platforms are using binary types of platforms, 1, 0, on, off. It's very easy, it's very cheap. And it involves a swipe right, swipe left type of interaction. We call this cognitive Tindering. And it has a broad impact on your brain because you're really training the brain to be reactive instead of proactive. So, who is training your brain? Well, the same ease and convenience that lets you one-click shop on your smartphone has a series of consequences that we might ultimately call Tinderization, like Tinder. You might know that dating app Tinder where you swipe left or swipe right if you like someone or not. So it results in little emotional consequence and droppability. So people are a product, and it's teaching you that, you can just basically throw someone out, easily dispense with them if you don't like them or don't like their looks. And that's very sad, and that's very cynical, and that's the world our kids are growing up in. So what's the result? We become more reactive and less proactive. And frankly, I don't want to raise a reactive child to become a reactive adult. Reactive adults get in trouble. They can't hold down jobs. They're not good at critical thinking. They get into arguments easily. They look for quick fixes. They're not responsible adults. So what better way to explain Instagram and social media? You see that? Our perception of reality, unrealistic expectations about appearance and obsession in crafting the ideal public image. What are your expectations about what reality should be versus what reality really is? It's a lot of emptiness, like this apple. So when we scroll and when we are hunting through news, the people that put the news out there and people that are managing websites know that we have a negativity bias. And there's something called doom scrolling now, where people actually scroll through and search and hunt for and get attracted to doom and gloom sites and negativity on the news that they see. So yes, Screenagers is a great film. Thank you for reminding me about that Screenagers documentary. So in effect, our brain is like Velcro for negative experiences, but Teflon for positive ones. So why is there a negativity bias? Well, we're wired for it. It's part of our evolution. It's a bioevolutionary system of alerting us and helping us to survive and making us look for trouble. So it's sort of like we're programmed for it. And we also get sort of a type of security knowing, well, that's not us, that we're not in that doom that we're seeing. So it serves a couple of purposes. This is a great book by Sherry Turkle, Alone Together. So how is technology impacting our sense of self, our values, our problem solving, our relationships? What can we do about it? Well, number one, track your footprint. We talked about that. Hours per day, sites preferred. Track your kids' usage. That's the first step, number one. See how much time of your life you're wasting online and what else you could be doing. Ask yourself, am I seeing posts that make me unhappy? Do I follow accounts that make me feel sad or that I'm not as worthy? Am I comparing my life to others? Is it affecting my mental health? We need to connect with others. It's in our DNA. It's part of our survival. It's how we're wired. And ultimately, it's what makes us the happiest. I see Megan in here, and I think I see Phoebe. And I know I see Megan in this picture. So people need to be connected. And they feel under a certain pressure to be happy by what they see on social media. So what is happiness? And how can rethinking happiness help protect us and keep us vibrant in this digital age? Who defines it? Are we defining happiness, or is social media defining happiness? Does happiness have to be earned? Must you wait for happiness? Does success lead to happiness, or does happiness lead to success? What are our expectations? Expectations are very much tied to happiness. There's a lot of talk about happiness. Well, there's science of happiness. The science of happiness courses are very popular today in colleges, as you know. And our seeking of happiness and our seeking of fulfillment is something that we need to be aware of as the brain cloud interface becomes more a part of our lives. As working with technology, having technology interfere with our life becomes more dominant. You need to take control, and you need to know you have a choice. And this is Zuckerberg talking about the research of brain-computer interface. And you can Google this, but there's going to be an augmented reality where you can just think of things or talk out loud, and your answers will be given to you, like Alexa's doing right now. So you have to keep your self intact and your emotional self healthy. So can we code ourselves and our children for a better future? This is a great book on the subject, The Shallows by Nicholas Carr. So how can we do it? Number one, realize what's happening. And you are, because you're listening to this webinar right now. Keep active, keep physically active, keep active socially. Keep your social support system, which research for decades has identified as an important health factor for longevity, for overall emotional and physical health is your support system. Do not give it all away up to digital technology and watch your digital footprint. I hope we have some WBI friends on today. I'm a WBI fan and had participated with WBI and have a certificate in coaching from them. So one of the ways that I think we can counteract the negative impact of digital technology on our emotional selves is by using the SPIRE model and the change model to facilitate growth and emotional vibrancy. Number one is, what Tal Ben-Shahar says is to accept that painful emotions are a part of life. That's how we grow. And that to recognize that sometimes we escape pain by going online or going on social media. What are you running from? And if you're spending more than 28 hours or 30 hours a week online, what is that telling you? The Whole Being Institute offers wonderful courses on this, but I just want to tell you about SPIRE because that's easy. So in your daily life, you should have SPIRE. That stands for all of these 5 elements in your life. And ask yourself if you have it. Spirituality, physical well-being, intellectual stimulation, relationships, the importance of relationships, and emotional well-being, emotional functioning. And we use the change model to help facilitate growth. So you can use this in your life to stop being overly dependent. So here we go. I want to talk about the change model. The C stands for clarifying. So create clear and heartfelt, forward-looking goals. In that, identify what's keeping you from making those changes. What's keeping you from your goals? When do the brakes go on when you want to change your habits or when you want to change how you're spending your day? The change model, thank you, is created by Linda Wallace. She also created the CARE model, C-A-R-E. That's another great thing. Catch yourself. The CARE model. H, explore your hopes. Explore your strengths and the resources to help you make your hopes and dreams come true. What fuels your optimism? That's hope. A is for activate. Activate the change process with positive action. Make one change. Take that first step. Take your foot off the brake. Put it on the gas and make that first step. N is navigate. That's create an adequate and an adaptable big picture map of your path to a goal. For navigation, I sometimes use maps like Candyland, that old board game, to navigate towards my goal. It's called goal mapping, but that's what I do. But make a big picture, and along with that, set up realistic goals that you can adapt to and reach. Little steps along the way. Water the flowers, don't water weeds as you go along. And then G, go for it. Make rapid, substantial, sustainable progress towards goals. And then E is the broaden theory. Expand, broaden the impact by expanding positive change into other arenas. Learn from this change. So you can learn more about this from Whole Being Institute. They're wonderful courses. I have grown so much from them and would not be here today without WBI. So you can learn more about this. One of the things in making change in your life is what we've learned from eco-psychology. And this is important to keeping your brain healthy. Going out in nature really does benefit your emotional health. It benefits cognitive functioning. There's a great research being published on this. So if you Google eco-psychology and benefits to your health, you'll learn more. So get off the phone, go outside, take a break for a day if you can, go for a walk, take a hike if you're in the city, leave the phone in your purse or put it away somewhere safe, and take in the surroundings if you can in the park or along the river. What should we be listening to on that walk if we're on our smartphone? Well, there's an interesting study that says songs like ABBA songs with a very fast beat really helps that timing mechanism in your brain, the pace and beat. So when you're walking or working out, that lively fast beat, about 100 steps per minute, is really going to get your brain, that timing mechanism charged up. Because remember, your timing mechanism has been downshifted from all the time online. Finding purpose, finding meaning and purpose is another way to stay emotionally vibrant and healthy. Make friends, and have friends that are like baking powder, not cement, friends that lift you up. Social relationships help us stay connected in the real world to each other. Choose friends who are positive, who lift you up. Social interaction boosts brain power. Generosity. Being generous lights up your brain, giving to others. There's a study that's out there, and you can actually look. This is from 2018, but different types of generosity lights up different types of your brain. The one that lights up your brain the most, just to summarize it and be super easy, when you actually give to others and you can see the result. So not just writing a check, but you actually write a check for something you're really passionate about, or something specific, a specific cause that you are interested in. Gratitude lights up your brain. So practicing gratitude, writing a gratitude journal, taking a break throughout the day. I recommend this. Thinking about or writing down, if you can, 3 things you're grateful for 3 times a day. And that sort of shifts your mind away from just being passive on the computer. And actually, gratitude practice is something that the brain likes. And there's been some studies on gratitude in the brain. That's another talk, actually. How do you develop positive thinking? Well, it's not something you do randomly. We talked about this with the change model, Inspire. This is a great book by Norman Doidge, The Brain That Changes Itself. It's a practice that you have to do daily, like exercise. And you can prepare for a situation by thinking, I'm going to go through the situation positively before it happens. You can make a choice to think about situations in a positive way. It's a habit. So here's a summary of what we can do, because I want us to talk. Number 1, delay access to social media and online gaming. You have the power, not the phone, computer, or TV. Strengthen your relationships with people in your life and communicate. Put your phone in the phone basket. No tech at the table or a half hour before bedtime. That's the blue light thing. So try to disengage from your iPad or your tablet or your phone or your computer half hour at least before bedtime, 45 minutes for kids. Check your family account and screen usage on your smart device. Monitor activity on your computer and laptops. Keep laptops in view if you have kids, so they're not just shutting the door and going to their room for hours on end. Set time limits at home with your kids. Plan real life, non-tech events, outings, trips, experiences that are meaningful without, the phone interacting with you. Talk to each other and actually plan the trips or plan outings. Watch your digital footprint. Counteract the negative influences with positive ones, positive experiences, positive dialogue with each other. and this is my last wish for you, is that you find a pebble of positivity in every situation, and a mountain of possibilities will emerge on your horizon. Thank you. You ready to talk?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
It's another content heavy talk, but let's discuss.
Yeah. So we had some interesting questions in the chat. One was about an app that can, is there an app that you would recommend that can kind of collate your phone, your laptop, all of your digital usage?
Yes. There are several. Yes, you can Google it. We have one from our carrier. So we actually have an app that we have on our carrier. So you can get that. And, you know, it depends if you're like, if you use like Apple for everything like we do, we have it. It coordinates and it breaks down the usage.
Great. Okay. And then someone said that they actually got off Google and they use DuckDuckGo now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And that Screenagers is a
yes,
good.
Screenagers is a great documentary. So one of the things that people talk about, and I saw some questions come up, it's difficult to have experiences during COVID. And if you can go outside with your kids or a family member and just disengage, it's great. Engaging online through Zoom is also really great. We talked about this, I think in June when we did at Lunch and Learn. So I'm involved with the JCC in Miami. And one of the things our friend Nancy Kirshner did was show and tell every Friday. And it was a show and tell group, and where the ladies would, you know, show a piece of jewelry that had meaning, or share a piece of art, or share a recipe. You know, we have, you know, virtual happy hours. I know so many grandparents that are doing story time with their kids virtually. So if you can't get outside or you can't share something outside, do something that's interactive with the real people in your life. So you're actually sharing important gifts with one another via Zoom.
Awesome. Now, I know that the age group that are experiencing the most loneliness are actually the young people in their 20s.
Because they didn't have life before the internet or iPhone. They don't have that backpack or that kit of social and communication skills like we do. They have a different set of skills. So much of their communication's been online, and they don't have the same type of intertwined relationships that you have as we do in our generation, especially with school being so virtual.
Yeah.
You know, they're not with their friends. It's very isolating and it's very frustrating.
Well, it's even how to make friends. I know that, for example, I know this is going to seem silly, but I was looking forward to jury duty in New York City.
What? You were looking forward to it?
Yeah, because the last time that I did jury duty, I met so many interesting people because there was nothing that we were allowed to do, right? You had to be in the room with people and you could read paper. And so I would have these conversations with people next to me, and invariably, this guy was a singer, this other person wrote for the Times. I mean, it was because it was just somebody else was working.
Well, I mean, you know what, Caroline, that's kind of highbrow. You're in New York.
Well, no, somebody's a janitor. It didn't matter. We were all talking about different things. And then we got to go out to lunch. You know, I said, anybody going to lunch? And we went to, it was near Chinatown.
Oh, so that's great.
Different experience.
Yeah.
So my point is that even when I was traveling, I used to travel before COVID a lot. I would meet people in airports. There would be some kind of social interaction.
Well, you know, you're not
on your phone.
This is part of the problem. And you bring up a good point. I'm so glad you mentioned this. This is part of the problem. One of the things our brains need for survival and growth is feedback from others. Okay. We need the mirror, which are people. People give us feedback. We need that interaction so we can have somebody mirror back to us what we're telling them, but also to validate us. And we need that interaction, and we don't get it. And kids don't get it as much as we do because so much of their activity is passive and non-interactive. So that's a missing piece. And that's something that you might need to actually build, if you have kids, build that into your kids' life so that they are interacting with others, so that they're not just passive. And you have to be a little creative to find it. I know, for example, I just am working with a kid right now who's, going to do an interactive drama class online in New York City. I know somebody who's doing an interactive improv class, all online, but at least they're communicating with other people. And somebody online had a really good question about Kindle versus real life books. So yes, there's a difference. There's been studies on this about reading online versus reading a real book in front of you. And again, it's the concern is with the blue light and the reading. So some people prefer real books. I prefer real books to Kindle. Kindle or downloadable books are obviously more convenient. So many of the books our kids have now are all online. They don't have a choice. All their textbooks are online. I have a teenager, and my teenager does not like the online textbooks. She, especially like for AP Bio. So I ordered her a real book from Barnes and Noble because that's just the way she learns. So realize that your child's learning style might necessitate having a real book, and to not be afraid to ask for that from your school.
So here's a couple questions. Young people and their history, does this mean they are more reactive versus thinking deeper because they're on their phones? Is the timing of their brains off?
Personally, that's been my experience in 25, 30 years of working with teenagers before digital devices. Yes, and I started out as a teacher 40 years ago. So in 40 years of working with kids, yes, that is how I think. That's my observation. I hope that science gives us more data on this, but this is what I'm seeing. And I'm also seeing that, and this is a whole other, I wanted to get into this, Caroline. Kids today are less comfortable with ambivalence than we are. And life is full of ambivalence. You can't swipe. So much of what's in front of them on the screen is black and white, yes or no, on or off. Real life, it does not come down to two choices that are swipeable. Real life is full of ambivalence. And that's what we have to teach our children, because they're not as comfortable with that as we are, because our life was full of it. It wasn't as set up.
Do you think that actually maybe that's the silver lining of COVID, is that we are all having to face that?
I hope so. I hope that's one of the silver linings. I hope the silver lining of COVID is for people to engage like we are now. This has been a silver lining, your Lunch and Learns, to engage like we are now and have honest conversations.
Right.
Face it. Face what the hardship is and be real with each other and be honest. And I think that is the silver lining.
One of the things that I've heard about social media, and then I wanted to get to the question is, can you suggest a quick to read book to help parents of children of all ages? Quick to read books to help children and help parents of children of all ages. Quick to read. But the other comment I wanted to make was, it seems to me because social media is tracking our preferences and actually giving things that feeding us things that we like, we don't have a lot of discourse with things that we don't like or interfacing. For example,
it's a good point.
In the political arena, if you tend to skew towards watching a certain news channel or reading a certain newspaper, then you get more of the same. Right? It actually starts to feed you more of the same. And one of the things that does is then you don't have people of different opinions in your sphere. And then that decreases the tolerance and also makes us more reactive to diversity, to things that we don't necessarily agree with, because we're not used to it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is true. Now we get pop-ups. I just had one. I get pop-ups all the time from different political people, especially as we get closer to the election. You know, I mean, probably every single one of us in this room today, in this chat room, we're getting pop-ups or emails or something from both sides, something political, both sides. The thing that worries me is the dishonesty and the cynicism that's out there that our kids are exposed to, and not accurately labeling what is the reality because it might not fit the narrative of either party. I mean, lying to children, the lying to children. I say the level of lying is concerning to me. I've never seen it before. I mean, I thought 68 was pretty cynical, and I remember 68. This is a whole new level, and that concerns me, the level of cynicism and the ease at which there's lying and dishonesty out there that our children are exposed to.
And finally, because I know we were going to go over a little bit, is it possible we are reacting to COVID dynamic versus open dialogue and different opinions? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Sue. I can unmute you if you want, if I can.
Well, I think with social media, I think this has been a long time brewing. This has been a problem. I started giving workshops on this over 3 years ago. And so I just think that the COVID has made the future faster, and it's brought these issues faster to many people. I think that knowing how much of our lives are spent online and how much our brains are and our emotional well-being can be affected by digital technology is an important conversation to have, and that you have the choice. You have a way to think differently, to catch yourself, and to realize that you have a way of counteracting it by making the choice to think more positively about your life and what your purpose is and what you want to model in the world for your loved ones.
And let's just go ahead and end, because I don't want to make sure we get to these 2 questions. What about audio listening books versus reading a physical book? Does that make us lazy-brained?
That's actually total interaction with your brain. It builds some skills while not using other skills. Actually, some kids do much better reading along with the audiobook. And again, that depends on your reader or who you are or your learning style. So I'm not saying judgment either way. I'm just saying it's very important, and some kids actually benefit from having an audiobook along with the written book.
Gotcha. And then finally, again, let's go back to that question of suggesting quick to read books.
Okay, so 2 books right now, and they're on my slide deck, but 2 books. The Shallows by Nicholas Carr. The Shallows by Nicholas Carr, and then Alone Together by Sherry Turkle.
Beautiful. I do want to remind everybody that our Lunch and Learn on Thursday is going to be about gratitude. I believe Natalie is on the call today.
That's perfect, because gratitude lights up your brain, and that's one of the best ways you can keep vibrant.
Yes, exactly. So Natalie Horner, Gifts of Gratitude, and she will be here on Thursday. There's a link in the chat if you want that. I can go ahead and put that back in there as well. And if you are interested in courses from WBI, our partner, please feel like you can I just put a link in the chat. I'll do that again so that you can go and check through that link. We have a free Spire check-in too that we will send you. These recordings are submitted to everyone that signs up and registers on Friday. So don't worry, you'll get that in the slide deck and all the recommendations. So thank you once again, Sherry, for yet another mind-blowing conversation.
It's a lot. It's a lot. You're going to think differently today, aren't you?
Yes, yes, very much so. Thanks again.
My pleasure. Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.